another fantastic evening, which means we've got some FaceIt League action coming your way. And hey, Dextron, I would say it's a pretty important match here tonight. Both 4 and 2 teams between Dreamland and InControl. And obviously, getting top 8 is the goal for these teams right here. And winning that game here today, it's going to get them another step closer. Because, I mean, there's only a few weeks left of doing this. There's not a ton of super tough games still sitting by for those teams.
Yeah, there's not as much super tough games left for either of these teams, but this really marks that halfway point here for both these teams after this game. They'll still have a lot of games left to be played, but I mean, going to the back half of your schedule with only 2 losses is very, very favorable, especially when I'm looking at, I believe I'm looking at InControl's schedule for the remaining part of it. They still have to play Unity Academy, Emo Down Mid, Dill Dragons, Regen, and those are 4 of their last 5 games right there. So they have a really, really tough back half here. So winning this one here tonight might be something that's very, very important to them. But hey, like you said, a very, very important game for both these 2 teams coming in 4 and 2. So they've had a good start to the season so far, but this is a big week for teams. I believe every team is playing 3 games this week, which I think is really becoming the norm here after this week as well, where every team is going to be playing 3 games. So you're going to be seeing a lot of these teams here.
Yeah, I think you really are in the situation, and I'm excited to keep seeing both these teams. I think these are both very high-quality teams that could both very much get into that top 8 position. I think, obviously, with having such a tough schedule at the end, I think that's where we're really going to see them really be tested in a situation like this. So, either way, obviously, those are matches we'll maybe get to on a different day. But with this one right here, we are only about a minute and a half away from the lobby being set, and then we'll be able to see what first map pick and bans are going to be. And Dex, I have to say, it's been really consistent. I know there's only so many choices with it being controlled, but nobody wants to play on Ilios. It's consistently either Busan or Oasis. It's been Oasis a lot lately, in that those bans, they kind of are falling under the same category, because it feels like we've seen the same, maybe 6-7 characters be banned, at least until we get into those, map 4, map 5 type situations.
Yeah, because a lot of the times that's a situation where you are in a map 5, you kind of gone through all your very important bans that you want to get out of the way to try to give yourself an advantage. And at that point, you're just trying to figure something out that will really disrupt how the other team will play. But again, these teams, both very deep, have 5 players each, so might see subs throughout the night here. Honestly, would expect to see subs throughout the night here for both these 2 teams here. But these 2 teams, I mean, coming in hot coming into this series here. You have Dreamland, who has won their last 3 series in a row. InControl's won their last 2. I mean, these are 2 teams that are looking to keep a very, very hot streak going here. But you're talking about bans. I feel like Juno is a very safe ban anytime, and you're either going to be seeing maybe something on the other side like a Hazard, or Sombra has weirdly been one that I've been seeing a lot here banned out map number 1.
Yeah, it's been coming back into that fixture right here, and we're going to find out if that's going to be the case here in just a couple of minutes, because we do, in fact, getting this lobby open here. It's ready to go. And obviously, got to find out where we're going first and foremost. Sombra, honestly, the Sombra ban wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I feel like teams don't want to run into the Sombra, not because I think Sombra is particularly super strong, but I think Sombra pairs off with a lot of the heroes very nicely. But either way, Oasis, it's going to be the trend, and the trend is going to continue onward, but we still have to see what our bans are going to be. But Dreamland is going to have first ban in the situation right here, and while the map 1 bans are usually pretty common, I would say for the most part, they're always pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, you never necessarily want to ban out something too strong on map 1, because it kind of puts you at a worse spot later in the series. So like you said, safe bans coming out here. That's why you always kind of see a support and a tank be banned out, because a lot of the times, especially on control, you kind of play around the bans pretty well here. So you really want to save some of those very key bans for the later maps, where the maps kind of become a little bit more composition based here. But ban number 1 coming in here looks like Dreamland doesn't want to see the Diva come out here. Not necessarily a big surprise. Like I said, I would always go for a tank. I thought it would be the Hazard, but no, seems like they want to get rid of Diva here. Not the worst pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really not. It can be difficult to deal with the diva, especially if you kind of run along the route of like you decide to run a Winston. It can be pretty bothersome to have to walk into something like a diva, and diva can just be a reliable thing in a lot of senses anyhow. So I think it's a pretty safe pick, all things considered. But InControl, we'll figure out their ban here in a moment because we unfortunately won't be able to quite see it until we really start getting into the game itself here. But obviously, it has to be either damage or support. Which, at the end of the day, we have seen the Juno be the first ban a lot of the times. We've even seen things like the Freya be banned pretty early on. But it's just something worth to see as teams are going to finalize their rosters. I imagine probably the 10 that are already in are likely going to stay there for the moment being. But, I mean, these are rosters that I believe, and I'll double-check myself here momentarily, but have been very willing to kind of swap around because not every roster has 6-7 players that they're willing to kind of put all of them through rotation.
Yeah, absolutely here. But I mean, when you look at the names of some of these rosters, especially when you look at Dreamland, I mean, a couple recognizable names. I mean, you have Hanbei, you have Pella there as well. I mean, names that are very, very recognizable. Talisman, Monkey, Happy as well. I mean, those are all names I have recognized from the past. Benevolence, though, and I believe Zero have been ones that we have seen in the past in some of the community leagues that we cast for here. But the second ban coming in here, not going to be the Juno, but it's going to be one of their support friends there in the Kiriko.
Yeah, Kiriko, also I would say relatively safe, all things considered here. I don't have a lot to say about it, quite honestly. It's just a safe pick. It's an easy pick. It's a character you obviously don't have to deal with. The cleanse can be pretty tough to deal with, especially if you decide to run the Ana, which going to a map like Busan, the Ana's a character that definitely has a pretty good probability of coming out at some point. Maybe not quite on something like a university where she can be pretty exposed pretty easily, but it's really a lot easier when you get to, a map like Garden where you are able to kind of hide around in that corner on the high ground on that staircase where you have the option to simply back off or jump down or go under. You have a lot of options and abilities to escape as an Ana when Ana is obviously a character where if you're caught out without your cooldowns, Dex, there's not a single thing you can do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're caught out without your cooldowns, you'll be cooling yourself down for about 10-15 seconds there because you will most likely die. So again, a lot of options you could see. I do like the fact that we do see the Kiriko ban coming here. Just for what you said, it allows Ana to be played. It allows those bio-nades to find so much value without having the fear of like being cleansed out or having it cleansed some other way there. So a very, very smart ban there by InControl. They want to play the Ana on this map. However, you kind of have to look at what else do we expect to see here. No Diva, so Hazard is still a possibility. Yeah. You could see the Orisa come out here. Orisa's been very, very popular lately, especially on University here, where you have seen Orisa kind of take over the map. But once you get to something like City Center and Gardens, or downtown and Gardens, Hazard, because of their ability to get those high ground areas a little bit faster, seems to be the go-to. And that second tech, I would say, at those two maps would be the Diva, but we're not going to be seeing her the first map.
Yeah, I think some teams kind of fall around still the same thing of things like, like the Break Juno, things like the Freya Sojourn, Freya Tracer. That's just kind of what teams are beginning to gravitate around. But teams are also willing to kind of test around with a lot of different damage characters. I mean, at this point, we have seen the Torben be thrown out. We've seen the Symmetra been thrown out. We've seen Ventures from time to time. We're at a time where DPS isn't necessarily restricted to only a couple of picks. Yes, certainly there are really, really strong DPS characters, but with the nerfs that we've had to characters like Freya, it's no longer a must pick. It's definitely still strong, but you have things like the Cassidy that recently had a big upgrade to the range on their primary, so you get a lot more effectiveness. So I think the options are pretty out there as... You can see where we're slightly rambling as we're just waiting on one player to get into this lobby from the side of Dreamland. I gonna double check who that is as it was
they're here.
Yeah. Oh no, never mind. I'm not gonna call them out. You were 1 second away. You were 1 second away. As hey, we're gonna be able to move.
Just had to say something.
Honestly, just had to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, but right now, like you're talking about, I mean, you still have those kind of like I would say core 4 or 5 DPS you will see. Genji Tracer being, that kind of off, that kind of flex one. And then you have the Sojourn and Freya kind of being that hit scan one. Cassie is starting to show up a little bit. You mentioned Venture here. That is a very fun hero to see because I really think that Venture at the moment is kind of underrated, especially when you look at how teams are playing into some comps here. So it's going to be really, really fun to see if that's going to be the case here going in this first map. But it looks like from the side of InControl, the Junker Queen might be the first option here, which is Really interesting,
Oh,
especially. Well, no, gonna be almost essentially a mirror match at this point. Manually, though, not gonna be playing the Freya. Gonna be going over to the Cassie, like kind of highlight already. Their range got a little bit of buff, and I mean, one thing I've been hearing a lot is just the effective range of Cassie is now a lot better, and especially on a close control map here, where of University, the cast will just find so much value. But Corey swapping over to the Sombra here late, probably expecting this Orisa duel here, so want to be focusing in out on Pella on the other side.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, you want to have a best start as possible. Manually being on the Cassidy, I like seeing it here right out the rip. But you can already see right now in the scenario that we have kind of gotten ourselves in out the gate. Dreamland is playing near this point a lot more. We see the drop come down right now. As Lonely Clover literally goes on the hunt right there. Is Manually going to get pushed back. He will need to expend a lot of cooldowns to push bodies back and give yourself a better opportunity to book point. Very easily going to go over to the quality of Dreamland, who are already going to be up in the fight 5-4 right here. He's just in a really unfortunate situation. Is probably going to eventually be forced out, if not burnt away right here. Maybe hoping to try to, you know, bait in the tank right now. But for the time being, playing relatively safe.
And you can see these two teams are trying to feel each other out here. They're not trying to necessarily go headlong into a fight here, especially with one member of InControl falling here early on. Corrin now back into the fray. So you're looking for InControl to go fast, but Key, I mean, they're just getting targeted out here.
Yeah, Narwhal just getting heavily pressured right here. Eventually going to get burnt down, but Key also going down means that, I mean, I like that trade more than anything else. I'll take losing my break over losing, you know, the enemy tank right there. As eventually going to be burning bodies away. Eventually going to take the trade out as well. Benevolence going to take one down with them right here, but it's still going to have to cause a reset.
It's going to cause a reset, but you look at what Dreamland has here in this engagement. They're going to have 3 really good ultimates in the rally, not that far behind. You're really looking for the bolo here for Benevolence to really get something going, but it's going to be very difficult, especially with Hanbei on that that immortality field is going to basically keep everyone alive throughout that engagement, and you're going to see Dreamland, I think, play a little bit aggressively here, knowing they have this slight ult advantage.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb comes out. Not going to do a whole lot, unfortunately, right now. Going to see Amatrix being used as well, but Nyx has been taken out pretty early in the situation right here. It's going to be hard to really bounce back in the scenario because you have to pick at the litter right now if you're in control right here. And honestly, you might not need to use any ults at all, and as a matter of fact, they don't have to use a single thing, which means you're going to this fight with 5 ultimates, and if they rotate this correctly, Dex, that could be really scary.
5 ultimates, I mean, yeah, like you said, if they rotate this and play smart, they could easily get rid of that 80% lead that Dreamland has here. But Corey's EMP is going to be the one that I really expect to see come out here early on. Is there going to be any ultimate that gets comboed with it? That's going to be the better answer or question, just because I feel like EMP on its own can win a fight if it lands on the 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, but you're definitely looking for those supports right now. If you end up hitting someone, you know, like Hanbei, like Norwal, it's going to be so hard to do anything right here. But we're seeing the hack come out here with that Orbit Array being used first and foremost right now. Zero getting some bodies in there right now, going full charge, and the dog ends up getting rid of 2 of them. So now 2 ultimates down the drain, and this fight is all but lost. Using EMP here, I think it would be a grievous error right here as they're going to get hacked out, maybe for the better as they're making swaps. EMP ends up being used right here, and they're going to lose out on the fight. I mean, Dex, that is just a bad call.
It's a costly mistake. It really is, because you had EMP and Bolo coming into the next engagement. Yeah, it would have been a final touch situation, but you would have put yourself in a really good spot to maybe find something with an opening pick right there. Hanbei and Manually, they have their ultimates here, and I imagine they're going to be almost using them immediately here, just to try to keep InControl away from even getting close to this point.
Yeah, it really is right here. They're going to be pushing to try to get there in this situation. For the time being, touches are coming through right now, but Key's already super low. Is Manually just going to go and hit that Deadeye, and no one's even going to be able to retouch with that being there. So, unfortunate mistake early on here for InControl as Dreamland taking map 1 right here. And to be fair, Dex, I mean, we've been there before. We've been in our comp games and everything, where we think, you know, maybe we can clutch this up. Maybe we hit this ult, and everything will change. Unfortunately, it's just 4 ults down the drain in a losing fight. It's a recipe for things to not go well.
Yeah, it screams more of desperation kind of plays coming out there, which is not necessarily what you want to see. But, I mean, I'm just looking at the stats there for this first map. Hanbei and Manually never died, and they did so much. Manually had 5,000 damage. I think you basically have to add up everyone else's damage on their team to even match them. Manually was doing so much on that Cassie, and like we kind of talked about, with Cassie getting a little bit of a buff here recently, Cassie's almost in a new light here. And I mean, you see Kaori going back over to the Sombra here. Did a good job on it, but I felt like that EMP needed to come out a little bit sooner. It needed to be comboed with Zero's Orbital Ray when they threw that out there, because I just felt like they needed to win that fight desperately.
Yeah, you see Key willing to go in really deep here to try to make something happen. Pella, only one currently kind of occupying the high ground as Key eventually simply going to get forced back further and further. No cooldowns to the name. Not much to be able to do right here as Dreamland going to keep stomping forward. Should be able to take first fight without any further issue. Nobody else is going to get taken out. Bevelin still gets super low, but should be able to get out here as Hanbei already halfway to that first ultimate.
And manually as well, already above 50% here. Normally you're looking at maybe Benevolence on the Freya to build up to an ultimate fast, and yeah, they already are 50% to their Bolo. But at the moment, I mean, the Bolo did not find a lot of value last map, and I don't really think we saw anything from Manually though. I mean, they're on fire to start off this map here already in this series, 8-0.
Yeah, I mean, Cass has that potential to do some really amazing things right here. Deadeye going to be online. 2 ultimates being online first and foremost. That is really scary to deal with, as Benevolence actually going to give up who they were close to the bubble shot, going to switch over to the Cassidy themselves.
I just think they were seeing what Manually was able to do on the other side and just said, yeah, I can't play the Freya into this. And Pella was doing a good job, just also forcing them back as well. The damage was out here early from Hanbei.
Yeah, kind of having a shoe moment here for a moment. At the very least, is going to clear things away. Narwhal going to get protected as well. Going to see the force away right there, but Manually going down does open up the door just a little bit right here. One Lake Clover falling as well. InControl trying their very nerves to take this fight away right here. It's a 3v3. Key is going to have to use the ult just to really just hang on for the extra moment, but Pulse Bomb is going to be responded to. Fight going to stay in control of Dreamland as they're going to hold on to the point. One fight away from taking this one away already in our first map.
Yeah, and I mean, you're going to have an Orbital Ray coming into this fight here for InControl, but I mean, you really need Kaori and one Leaf Clover to really build up to their beat and EMP here, because I mean, you just saw Key use their Terror Surge and really find nothing with it. Pella still has theirs. They're in a really good spot right now. Like you said, Hunter, this is basically final fight territory. You need an opening act here if you are InControl.
Yeah, really do right now.
That's right there, actually.
Yeah, Kaori is going to need this EMP really badly right here. In fact, he's going to have to just go in and use it here. It's going to go in. There's no one inside right here, but they have to. They have to. There's not really a choice right here. 88%. If they can set up for a retouch, maybe, but who's even going to get it except for Kaori?
I mean, they're gonna, yeah, it's gonna have to be Kaori, who I do see going towards the backside of the point here, but One Leaf Clover needs to get towards point here fast. They have that beat ready to go. Yeah, you're down 0, but you need just to get that beat off and take a fight here.
And you just have to throw the EMP out. I'm sorry, you have to go for it right there. Now they have to go in aggressively with the beat. Nothing to their name. They're going to get burnt away one off the other. And I'm sorry, Dex, but they're going to get pushed away. Not really any realistic retouches here either. One Leaf Clover getting burnt away, and Dreamland starting incredibly strong to get things going here. And at the end of the day, Dreamland just played clean. They played safe. They played the way that they normally do. Unfortunately, InControl just seemingly having a bit of a shaky beginning here.
Yeah, but like you said, Dreamland played very clean. They played very smart. They understood their win conditions in a lot of these fights, and the only time they lost the fight, they understood that they were losing it and either said, okay, I can't get out, let me just run into InControl, or hey, they were able to get out there. They just played it really smart, but like I said, and like you kind of said there, the EMPs coming out from InControl, they needed to not be held on to, because like you said, especially on that second point, just throw it out there. You don't know what will happen sometimes when you get that EMP out there. And like I kind of mentioned on the first point, University, the EMP, in my opinion, really needed to come out when the Orbital Ray came out, because it would have canceled or at least delayed the usage of the Terror Surge, which really won Dreamland that fight after it right there. I mean, you had everything going your way. You had all 5 ultimates, and you really lost to 2 when you invested 4, which is not something you necessarily want to be talking about here. But one thing I do want to talk about after that first map, just the stats. Hanbei, what an incredible round for them. No deaths at all. None. They played an almost perfect map, in my opinion. They also had 12 elims and 16 assists. They were all over the place. They got play of the game as well. You cannot talk more about them there.
No, because in the world of 2025 Overwatch that we live in, BAP is not the easiest character in the world to kind of take control of, and honestly to have a lot of survivability, because in the game that we play, it is really easy to die quickly if you're just not in the right space. So having that ability to, control your high grounds, have the ability to realize when you need to get out of dodge before it's too late, that's really important to have right here. But Obviously, when we go into our next map, Circle Royale, it's going to be a little bit different right here because while there is still a lot of places to hide, there are going to be longer sightlines. There are going to be things to worry about, like potentially Widowmakers, like Freya's, like Hanzo's. Just kind of depends on the comfortability here, but that's going to require you to have to play a little bit safer, and honestly, in a lot of scenarios, play even further back.
Yeah, D.Va and Genji gave you the bans here this map again. So both teams really not wanting to see the D.Va at all. Genji being banned out is a little bit more of an interesting one because, like you said, this map is more known for that poke kind of play style, which does lend itself towards, you know, those hit scan heroes that you mentioned, Widow, Freya, Ashe, Han.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go down. But what has you really curious is while we had our picks, while we had our bans, both sides made a swap on each side. So Carry is going to be coming out, and it looks like McMahon can be taking their place. On the other side of things on Dreamland, their tank, Pella, going to be coming out, and it looks like they sent in Noxious in on this situation right here. So, I mean, swaps like these for a map like this, it's honestly not particularly shocking. It is a map that plays way differently than most of the other maps within Overwatch right here, so you're probably looking at someone to come in and play the Sigma, someone to be able to come in and play something like the Widowmaker or Freya more consistently.
Yeah, and just one quick correction there. The Narwhal actually came in there for Pella.
There you go.
Yeah, Noxious is NXS there.
Okay. Wait, yeah, so D, it was D. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
But I mean, maybe we're both wrong. We're probably both wrong.
Probably.
But coming out the gate, I mean, it will be InControl attacking here first. Dreamland, I mean, you can already kind of see what they're setting up here on the defensive side. Narwhal coming in on the Illari. We have talked about it a couple times in the past when we've seen this map show up that Illari is one of those supports that you see commonly played here on the first point and a little bit onto the second point, but after that, you will probably see them swap off to something else. And on the other side, One Leaf Clover. On that Zenyatta, another hero you really exclusively see on this map and on this map only in sometimes, but it's going to be really interesting because we talked about poke comps coming out here, and these two teams are showing us two different kinds of poke comps out here, but hey, manually finding One Leaf Clover out early on here, Hunter, yeah, it seems like Dreamland's picking up right where they left off, especially manually.
Yeah, you see the swaps already. Key just going to go over and match the Ramatra, One Leaf Clover, hesitating for a moment, but going to go over to the list. In fact, well, you know what? I'm just going to give him a moment. I think that's what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they wanted to play a poke competition here, but I think they just understood that Dion on this Ramatra being able to poke and then brawl up points was just going to be a little bit too much for them to handle. So go back over to the Orisa. I don't hate it here, but you really need to be able to push back Dreamland here, which they're doing, but this is something that we see a lot on this map. The defensive teams will allow the attackers to really push up to this bridge and then just start holding at the choke, which, hey, Manly already finding McMahon out.
Yeah, and now you see immediately Dreamland going to start pushing forward, start taking more and more effective space. Going to be a really tough scenario for Azira and Benevolence to really do anything right here. And now they pretty much have all committed down to the spot. And hey, for the moment, it's worked out, but now manually already has a bolo shot ready to go. Benevolence just a little bit behind here. So if they decide to go aggressive here and use it, I don't know if I would quite see it coming, but just kind of see momentarily.
McMahon making a swap here to the Mei, I really like it because the ice wall's out right there. Not going to be able to find Dion that time, but it does let them know they have to be pretty safe. Bolo shot coming out there, going to help them find Benevolence.
Yeah, and Key's going to get super low, but still has that gold form ready to go right here. Unfortunately, One Leaf Clover is just not in the right spot right there. Can't get out with the rest of the squad, so now Key and the rest of InControl just going to have to back out once again. I mean, bright side is they got some really good ults going to this fight here, but they have to get some kind of headway.
They really do, but like you said, they have ultimates coming into this fight, and I mean, even though Dreamland's been playing great so far, they really only have one Yak, Cat the Sun, and Annihilation aren't that far away. Same thing with the Overclock. You need to take the slight advantage, though, here. You need to go early and probably start off with that Orbital Ray from Zero, but you're going to have to deal with this Ametrix first.
Yeah, and you're going to see Zero ends up letting it rip, but Winley Clover dies pretty much right as it happens. So now it's a question of whether or not they want to invest any further right now. It's a 4v4. Bullshot is on the line for Benevolence. So if they manage to get past Dion's shield, but Dion is literally looking directly at them right now. So it's hard to really do a lot in this situation right here. Going to see the slide out right now. Everyone pulled in right now. Captain Benyuski is way deep in there right now trying to find something key. He's holding on as long as they can right here. Needs to be able to just survive the onslaught that is Dion. Dion could double down at the end of the day with that Annihilation, but simply going to back out. Bullshot not going to get anything either. So now Dex, as they push back further and further, they're able to regroup better and better here.
Yeah, but Dion holding on to this Annihilation is huge here, especially for this final fight here on this point. If they end up losing it, it should just be able to force everything back here from InControl. But Winley Clover does have that rally ready to go here, and they're cutting back for the overclock coming out from Noxious. I like this play for them there. They want this ultimate to go away, but hey, you just lost your one ultimate.
Yeah, and now your fight is done. Your Key's going to die here. The other two are simply going to try to escape and run for their lives, but unfortunately, yeah, Zero's just going to realize, it might not be worth doing. Realize they're not going to get reset that easily, and now, again, it's Final Fight territory. You're walking to an Annihilation, a Bullshot, and probably even another Matrix as well.
Yeah, you're going to be walking into a lot here if you're in control, but you really need Zero to build up to their own orbital right here right now, because that's what won you that last fight that you got a lot of decent card push off of here, and then Winley Clover, that rally needs to come in clutch here, really stalling out Dion's Annihilation whenever that comes out here, because at this point, they're holding it for Final Fight, because that's what this is at this point.
Yeah, and Deanna's going to get stunned out. He's going to probably have to pop Annihilation here, 100% will, and unfortunately, that might be a bit of the undoing right there, because now they're just going to get pushed back one at a time right here. Bullshot going to find something. You're going to get another touch, but unfortunately, it's not going to mean anything because nobody is left alive to get that touch here, so not even going to cap the first point here. Only 93 meters going to be set up here, and now, I mean, if you're Dreamland, this is essentially a 2, maybe 3, fight territory to simply take this one away.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. It might honestly just be 2, maybe even 1, depending on how InControl plays this. Do they allow Dreamland just kind of push up the card to that bridge, or do they try to play close and at least guarantee themselves 2 fights? It's gonna be interesting to see what InControl shows us here or what they do. But InControl, they really need to show us something here because Dreamland is slowly starting to just pull away. And I mean, their team's just playing smart. They're playing sound. They're playing incredibly safe here at the moment. That's been one thing that has been really impressing me about them. They know when to back out. They know when to aggress into fights. And it's been great. I mean, they have almost gotten, it seems like every fight, knowing what their win conditions were, finding out the most vulnerable target. I mean, Manly's been doing great on the Freya after having a great map on the Cassie. Hanbei is still doing great. Only got their first death that round. But now, I mean, Dion hasn't died and Narwhal hasn't died. I mean, when your tank and one of your supports hasn't died, you're doing something right on your side.
I mean, yeah, 100% a situation like this. So now in this scenario, once again, as I'll pull up the stats myself so everyone can really see what's happening here and how it's really hard to go through a round and not have have multiple people with 0 death. That is not something that happens consistently here. But Dion on the Reinhardt, it's going to be interesting, but you got to imagine this is something to push through and just be able to have a certain level of aggression you can't quite have with certain tanks.
Yeah, but I also think there's a little bit of confidence coming out from them right here, playing the Rhine, and the Ice Wall is finding value there from Noxious. Here's their early fight for InControl. Now you have one more, but that early fight did not go how you were hoping it would. You were really hoping to maybe get a minute off that time bank. You didn't even get 30 seconds.
Yeah, and now McMahon's going to swap immediately over to the Pharah in this scenario. I don't know how quite it's going to work out right here. Manually is already kind of keeping the sights firmly onto them right here, so you just got to play a little bit safe right here as that cart has roamed around more than far enough to consider this final fight territory if things were to go south. Key getting super low, being forced to use the Nemesis form, that's exactly what you want right here, because once that is out, Dion is not going to have much to stop them from simply moving forward and doing what they want to do right here. Curling at 3 meters away, Dion getting burnt away eventually is going to fall right here. Is going to be a tough situation for everyone to really do anything at this point right here. This might be a scenario of simply having to back out and take the reset.
Yeah, you're going to have to take the reset right there. And, I mean, getting rid of Dion first there for InControl was huge because they are so close to a shatter. I thought maybe they got 1-2 swings. They would have had that shatter online, would have been ready to go to basically end the map right there. But they're still going to have a shatter. I mean, hell, everyone on their team is really going to have an ultimate ready to go here before I think anyone on the side of InControl is going to have an ultimate here. Zero, though, might be able to build up to that orbital ray. Same thing with Benevolence with that bolo. But you need to find value, and you need to find a lot of value with both those ultimates on their own, not comboed, on their own.
Yeah, basically a solo shatter, by the way. Benevolence pops off big time right now, and unfortunately, Manually isn't able to match it. Freeze ends up getting used as well, and now with that, we're seeing some of the mistakes that we saw previously from InControl kind of affecting Dreamland here, using way too many ults.
Yeah, 4 ultimates in that fight, and you come out losing really to 1 bolo shot. I mean, InControl, they were looking for an opening. They found their opening right there. Now they're in a really, really good spot. They have 4 ultimates coming up online here. Benevolence already halfway up to another bolo, and now you just had almost a entire team comp swap here other than Hanbei and Manually. Dion going back over here to the Ramatra, so you have that mirror, but Narwhal back on to the Iari.
Yeah, and McMahon surviving momentarily in there right now. It's going to be a 3v4 scenario right now as Dreamland once again be forced to back out a little bit here. If you can manage to get rid of Benevolence, that'd be huge, but they're backed out again. And now with the minute 15, if I'm Dreamland, I might be starting to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to need to find something here because all 3 of those players that just switched and Hanbei, who just used that Amp Matrix, really need to build up ult charge and fast. You really only have 1 or 2 more fights, and you're walking into 3 very good ultimates on the other side here for InControl. And I mean, Hunter, it was about a minute ago. I thought InControl might have been out of this series, but they're still showing us they have a lot of fight here.
Yeah, Benevolence has an ability still hanging here right now. Annihilation being used aggressively. Rally is also used though, so they are doubling down in this fight right here. And no, it's gonna work out right here. I don't know if I would have necessarily used both, but to be fair, I mean, you're going to a fight where basically both teams are simply just going to have their bolo shot.
Yeah, but the rally was used there just to keep one Leaf Clover alive there. I understand why they use it, but I felt like that's an opportunity where you could take the death because both teams were going to have to regroup here. This is Final Fight territory, and no matter what here, and like you said, bolos are online, but a Captain Sun not that far away for Narwhal. That might open up a lot for them here, especially if they build it up here fast.
Yeah, but Manually gets hit with it. Manually's going to die with the ult here, and now it's opened up. One Leaf Clover got to back out just a little bit. Pressure being delivered. They're going to get the overtime touch at the very least right here, but someone is going to have to rush in here right now. Captain Sun going to be thrown in, but no one can retouch. No. What a hold for InControl, and Mickman, you might not be too horribly far off the mark there as they just simply couldn't make it back, but oh my god, what a hold.
What a hold, and like I said, I thought InControl was starting to lose grasp on this series. It would just seem like Dreamland had their number every time, but you said it right there, and you said it right when you said it. 4 ultimates coming out in 1 fight, and you lose basically because of a bolo shot. That's not how you want it to go. That's what really gave Dreamland a lot of momentum in the first point of Oasis. And it's what gave InControl a lot of momentum this time around here on the defensive side on Circuit Royale. I mean, they were looking for something. They just needed one little hope of light, one little just anything to give them some chance at it, and they found it. And Dreamland was just never able to recover. They made almost an entire team comp swap up there and just put themselves behind the 8-ball. And then you really just started to see some of that DPS line for InControl really step up and shut down a player like Manually, who's been doing great all series long. I mean, Dreamland, I'm looking at the stats here right now. There's still a couple members of this team that only died 2 times that map, but you're starting to see some of the rest of them, especially Hanbei, who did not die at all that first map, had the most deaths on the side of Dreamland there on that second map.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate how things went down in that sense here, and I really want to see how they want to try to adjust, because we're going from one extreme to the other here, going from a map that's very dominantly known for having a lot of poke compositions to Flashpoint, which is known for a lot of fast-paced compositions, which is why Dreamland banning out the Hazard honestly makes a ton of sense here. It is another character that can do a lot very quickly, that can be really hard to burst down in situations.
surprisingly, though, we haven't seen the Hazard all series long, but these two teams, they have to know a little bit about each other here. So Hazard being banned out here, maybe you want to try to have that Orisa mirror back, where that has been something you have consistently won when we saw it back on Oasis. Maybe you want to try to have that Ramatra mirror from the start this time around, not coming into it very late in a round, because I think InControl had a little bit more of an advantage because that mirror only came around that final minute of second map here. But the second man's gonna be really interesting to see here, because I feel like you should be leaning towards a DPS character here if you're InControl. Maybe something like the Cassidy, since we saw Manually have a lot of value on it back on Oasis, where hey, Flashpoint and Control, two very similar modes. That would be smart, but I would not be surprised if we see a support ban out here. Maybe something like the Juno here. No, it's actually the Lucio.
You're pretty close. You're pretty close. But Lucio being taken out is, oh, no. But you know, I think it's an interesting decision at the end of the day here. I don't really hate it, but the thing is, it's just gonna open the door for kind of a lot of what we saw back on first map, like going back to things like the Brig and the Juno, at least, over on the side of InControl. I imagine Hanbei still isn't being really stopped from playing the Baptiste. It might just stay that way, but the fact that you don't have the Lucio means you can't play fast if you don't go for something like a Juno Baptiste, which unfortunately doesn't really synchronize as well together as you would hope here. So this might force Hanbei off this character. It's a possibility, and if that happens, I'm curious to see how they perform without being on the Baptiste.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But my feeling is they're not gonna necessarily get off the Baptiste early on. We'll probably see it at least for the first couple fights. If they do end up winning, then probably a lot longer after that. But one thing coming back into this map, you do have Pella coming back in here this time around. So out goes a tank for the last map for them. So not necessarily a big shock. It's kind of what I expected. Pella did a really good job first map, and it was interesting to see them come out second map, but hey, they started off really good, so I thought, hey, it was a very smart swap there. But that second attacking round for them just slowly started to fall apart for them, and you always kind of have to look at your tank line when something like that, or your tank plane when something like that happens. But I don't necessarily think there's anything the tank player for Dreamland on Circle Royale could have done in that second round.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. You could always speculate, what could have happened if we would win on the Ramatra right out the get-go. Yeah, you can't think too hard about those things right there. But with that in mind, I think now if there is a lesson to be learned, you're simply going to go right out the gate with whatever comp you really want to run here, because it's not the same as a lot of other points where, yes, you could still make a lot of your changes here, but if you go into a map like Saravasa and you go into that first fight and you realize, hey, this is not it, it's a really hard situation to even take away that first point. You're almost a lot of the times surrendering that first point just to simply have a better start for the second one.
I don't want to talk about either of the tanks here at the moment, because I don't think either of them are going to be sticking with them. But we can look at the rest of the lineups here. Hanbei currently hovering the Ana, kind of what... I mean, no, I already said what I thought Hanbei would do, but going over to the Ana is not necessarily a surprise. Narwhal on the Kiri. Again, that's a very smart, safe backline. Nox is currently hovering the Sim, but that's probably just for a TP out of point, then going back over to a Tracer or a Genji themselves, is what I would assume. Same thing for Mickman. Yeah, Tracer for them, and is Nox going to actually stick with the Sim here? Very, very interesting. Nope, they just want a little bit of a further TP out of point here, but Pella's sticking on the ball. I don't necessarily know if InControl was ready for this.
My first guess would be they are not ready for it, but to be fair, once it hits, they gotta know if they're gonna wonder how they're gonna react right there. Pella pretty much gets knocked away immediately, doesn't find anything on the power drive either, manually has gone down. Pretty much everything going wrong that could have gone wrong at the outset, but it's still a winnable fight right now. It's a 4v4 right now. Pella has the ability to power drive once again. It's just kind of distracting a lot, but big nade coming on, 3 people getting hit, but again, Pella not able to find a whole lot here as 70% on the line. Going to be tipped back the other way to Dreamland, but I got to imagine that's probably not going to last for much longer.
No, it might only last about another 10 seconds here. Pella's going to be able to stall it out a little bit, hoping that the rest of their team gets here. But I just think you have to fall back completely here if you're Dreamland and regroup quickly without losing anyone. And it seems like what they're going to finally do here. But, I mean, this Orisa play from Key has been very, very good so far. And Pella just hasn't necessarily found the value you're truly looking for here with the Wrecking Ball, because they're always kind of getting caught out, it sees here.
Yeah, 100% power drive. Again, not going to find pulled out of the situation, but Key's gonna have a rough situation because they're just constantly getting poked and poked and poked, so they can't just simply stand out in the open and just keep tanking things away right here. But eventually, you're gonna have to find something in the background. Pella is definitely trying their hardest to be able to do so as Nade comes out. Not gonna catch on to anything right here, as someone has to eventually break through this, but unfortunately, manually gonna get caught out means, I mean, Dex pulling this back at this point is going to be unbelievably difficult, even with just one character down right here, because there's so many ults on the board here, and at this point, I don't know if I'm willing to give anything if I'm Dreamland.
I think if you're Dreamland, you're going to try to contest here just to force out some ultimates. You probably understand you're not going to win this one here, but hey, no, they're actually the one investing here. Nano out onto Pella early.
Ooh, and Benevolent's going to get rid of both of them, and that is, if nothing else, that will definitely end this first fight. So, InControl gonna take this first point away here, as Pella just simply gonna hit the reset right here. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me too much if maybe that swap came through after those mines, because unfortunately the Pella drives just aren't finding the effectiveness that you really hope for.
No, they aren't, and just I don't think the Wrecking Ball is finding the effectiveness you're really hoping for here either. I mean, even with the Nano, you saw them always constantly under 50% health there. They just weren't able to do really anything they wanted. But I want to highlight Benevolence here for one moment. They really came alive last round on defensive side, and they have really just looked like a completely different player here, and it's causing Dreamland a lot of problems here, because they are now looking for a way to shut down this Freya with no answer in sight.
Yeah, Orbital Ray gonna be used here. Manually has caught onto one once again here. Mickman being taken down right now. You can see right now they're separated away. Dreamland is going to get first capture onto the point right here, but manually being burnt away right now. You're going to try to get something with the Pulse Bomb. Zero, it does end up going down, so it does open the door up a little bit more right here, especially with Pella still having mines at the availability, but a rally being used, I mean, pretty much confirms the flip right here. Right?
Mines didn't come out from Pella, so they're going to try to stall this out here a little bit, and I like this play. You probably understand the Wrecking Ball is not necessarily working out for you as well as you hope, so just try to stall this point out. But hey, no, you have manually coming back in. This fight is still very much in your control.
That's surprising. I mean, they barely made it back, too. The mines ends up working out as an investment right here. Benevolence close to getting burnt away as well. So now you're in that one-fight territory right here. You're going to have the Bolo shot, but Key to kind of break the tie on the Bolos is going to have that Terror Surge. Mainly, it might end up being used as a sustain tool because, to be fair, it's hard to really use when everyone is sitting so far back.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult here, but right now, Pella was getting set up for a pile drive on that initial choke. Instead, you see the team for InControl kind of split up here, but they're still trying to focus out Benevolence, which is not the worst thing here, but you really need to be able to find them if you're going to focus them out this hard.
Yeah, they might just go for the solo right now, and they're going to pull them both in, and oh, that's not going to end very well, is it? No, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it's not. Key with the 2K. Unfortunately, Noel ends up going back and hitting the cleanse, and Key immediately knew what that meant. So 99% going to be on the board here for Dreamland. Going to get burnt away. Bright side for them, they're coming up on through, well, yeah, I would say 2 ultimates. I mean, maybe even 3 or 4 if the fight goes long enough.
But that same thing could be set for InControl, really. I mean, they're coming up to 3 ultimates here. Benevolence, we've seen them build up to their bolos pretty fast. Same thing more manually. So you could be seeing a lot of ultimates here. But it really depends on how long this fight takes here. Because you could be staring at maybe 1-2 more fights for Dreamland here. Or just 1 more if they decide to take it really, really slow. Which kind of seems like what they're doing here. You do see Noxious kind of pestering the back line. But you're really looking for something on the front line.
Yeah, Mickman gonna get forced around, has a recall, is not even gonna get the chance to use it right here. And now we're trading out one after another, but the flip is going to eventually come through. And eventually, Benevolence gonna be the last death here, so we're gonna make it 1-1. Gonna head over to the 3rd point right here. And importantly, Pella gonna have the mines coming up here shortly. And now, Momentum decks starting to go back their way a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, Dreamland needed that, or else I would have said this map's starting to get away from them there. And they're in a really good spot. Hanme was the only one that invested in Ultimate into that last engagement, but now they have 4 of their own going up against 3 on the other side, so it still should be a pretty heavily ult-invested fight. I would always say expect the rush out from Narwhal here first, but these Bolos have been coming out first the majority of the time.
Ooh. Narwhal, though, is down first and foremost. Mines has been used, and now the team is kind of separated. Key is down. This is going to be really hard to bounce back from, and Pella's going to go down, and, oh, Zero, that was not necessary, my friend.
That was absolutely not necessary, and I think Dreamland will gladly take that. usage of that orbital ray right there, because now you come back into the next engagement with your Bolo, with your Kitsune Rush. Yeah, you're still going to be going into basically the same ultimates on the other side, so you're not necessarily out of this fight here early on, but Kitsune Rush out here from Narwhal to start it off.
Yeah, manually goes to that Bolo, gets pushed back immediately by Key right there, kind of helping out the support line a lot right here. It's 40% already on the board right here. We could already be talking about potential final fight territory on this point, depending on how long this goes for. And Dex, I think I'll call it right there. I mean, 50%. You gotta win this fight right here, and you are honestly fine to kind of take your time and build up to a nano.
Yeah, and I think Pella's starting to fall in the same kind of mistakes that we saw them on the first point, trying to just get in that backline, not necessarily doing enough to disrupt Key on that front line, but hey, getting rid of Mickman is a huge early pick here for Dreamland.
Yeah, big sleep, and Terra Surge almost catches on to Hanbei and pulls them out. Nano is ready right here. You decide whether or not you want to use it. And honestly, at this point, I'd be trying to hold that as best as I can. It looks like Hanbei is going to get away with not having to use it here. They are going to be able to burn that into the 99% territory right here, as Recall going to be all that is left for Mickman, who looks like they'll be able to survive back out. And hey, 99%, I mean, all things considered, got to be happy with it.
Yeah, you gotta be happy with it anytime you get the 99%. You're not that far away from 2 ultimates. You're not that far away from both your support ultimates, so you're feeling very comfortable right now if you are in control. But like I was saying, Pella's starting to fall into these same kind of mistakes they made on point 1, where they were really focusing in on that backline rather than, you know, focusing in on the main kind of fight here. But Benevolence getting antied out, not being able to fall will come back to hurt them. That is one thing that I really saw in that last fight that made a difference. Noxious though.
Yeah, speaking of a difference, that's definitely one right there. I mean, your single bright side right now, if you're in control, that ends the fight right away, so you get plenty of time for another reset as Pella gets to 7 health, but is gonna live. Whew.
And that would have been a huge kind of tide turner right there. That Pulse Bomb was able to find Pella. But right now, I think Hanbei's been making a big difference on this honor. The anti-nades, while they've only been finding maybe one person out each time they come out, you always see them get very, very low, and normally a lot of the time they get taken out. So the plays by Hanbei have been huge right now, but will InControl even get a touch here?
Well, they're going to get it, but the question is whether or not they're going to take it, because Pella is still alive. It's a 44 situation with Zera being taken out. Not going to have the ability to bounce back with the support ultimate yet. Twin the Clover is getting very close to that rally right now. Banana has been used on the Noxious right here. Hanbei going to hit the nade as well, doing a ton for the squad right here. Recall going to get forced over on to Mickman as well. As you're just trying to get back, trying to survive. Key needs to live if you want any chance right now. Getting mega low, being kept up. Unfortunately, it's not enough, but Zero still wants to invest in this fight, and this could be a make it or break it scenario for the rest of the map right here if it doesn't work out. But it's literally just Pella and not just trying to hang on to the map right now. I think eventually they should get burnt down.
They should. Noxious going to be able to get a touch here. You need Pella to be able to get back to this point to help contest. Noxious falling. Pella's not going to get back in time. Dreamland now in a really, really good spot here. Pella making the swap over to this Orisa Mirror. The Wrecking Ball, like I said, it was struggling to find a lot of value. Granted, they did do a lot better after that first point, but I started to highlight there again on that third point that they were still kind of falling in those same kind of traps where they were going after the back line and just necessarily wasn't doing enough to the front line where Key was finding so much value. Same thing with Benevolence there, who's been honestly playing really well these last 2 maps. But now he backs her against the wall here for Dreamland. After an incredible start, you're now staring on the barrel of losing this point and being down to staring on the barrel of a 2-1 deficit.
Yeah, this is unfortunately starting to be the trend, and obviously, if you're Dreamland, you don't want to see it keep going this way right here. You're eventually going to go for the touch right now. Pulse Bomb ready for Mickman. Things better right now, though, and you're going to see everybody start to go one after another. Hanbei is getting caught with the Pulse Bomb, and that should eventually clear things away right here. As you're going to try to live long enough if you're Pella and Narwhal, you're going to be able to get rid of one, but realistically, they both should drop here, as that's going to be a relatively clean fight once again. And now, I mean, the ult banks for the most part have taken a big reset.
Yeah, they really have, but with Flashpoint going fast, I mean, you're kind of looking at the same thing that we saw last map on Circle Royale for Dreamland, where you make swaps and you put yourself kind of behind the 8-ball with ultimates. Yeah, we saw 2 ultimates come out there from InControl, but they have their Bolo. They're not that far away from Orbital and Rally. If you are Dreamland, you need to win a fight dry here, but losing manually early is not the way to do it, Hunter.
You know, I wouldn't statistically put my hopes in that being the case for me winning a fight here. The bright side is, again, it happens early. You could take the reset, but now Noxious is going to have to be the one to eventually go stop on that point here. But you have enough time to realistically go through with an entire game plan.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of have to get that game plan in motion here now because you're looking for a toucher with 85% on that clock. This is going to be final fight if Dreamland does end up losing.
Yeah, but bright side for Pella, ult is online right here. Going to knock them into a wall. Zero ends up getting taken down. Pretty massive key in a rough scenario right here. And now Pella is going to have an ability to likely hold on to this ultimate right here. But now things have started to go the other way. It's a 2v2 situation right here. And unfortunately, you don't end up catching one-leaf clover in that. That could be devastating as they're going to go grit the mini. Oh. They're going to get stuck. And now just barely missing out on that, I think is literally going to be the difference between a map potential map loss and a win, because when the clover just wins, you keep the Tracer around and InControl go back to back. I mean, what can you say about this team? This team that starts, you know, slow for a moment and then just bounces back and defies the initial expectations.
I mean, this is what we saw when we casted them earlier in this season. I believe it might have been against I forget who we cast them against, but they started off slow, were able to pick back up. I don't remember if they won or lost that series, but they did give me a lot of hope coming out of it here. Dreamland, though, we have to start asking the question, what happened? That first map, it was dominant from them across the board. It looked like they understood the ins, the outs, the micros, the macros, when to back out, when to engage in the fights. This time around, it just seemed like they were finding value at points, but it wasn't able to be consistent enough. And like I talked about, the Wrecking Ball there from Pella, while it did find some value, it didn't necessarily do enough of what you're really looking for from a Wrecking Ball. And it also kind of trickles down to that DPS line there. The Wrecking Ball is a little bit of an independent player a lot of the time, so you really want your DPS to really step up. We just didn't see that from them that much. I mean, manually, a player that we've been talking about so much throughout the night was struggling there. And Noxious, yeah, they did good. They had the most elims on their team with 18 that last map. Just still didn't end up doing enough. Manly, though, like I said, looking for a little more, died the most of anyone in the lobby there. 10 deaths, the only player at 10. I mean, when you're losing your Freya out early, yeah, we've talked about Freya being nerfed a little bit, but still the damage potential with Freya is immensely huge. So losing them early does put Dreamland in bad spots a lot there. But you look over to InControl. We talked about throughout the map. Benevolence was doing incredible throughout it. Mickman did a great job. And even Key, I mean, they came in and did an incredible job there, putting now InControl on serious point here.
Yeah, it's a really dangerous situation right here. And the thing is, once again, Dreamland definitely has the ability to bounce back. They have proven that they can bounce back and that they can fight back. But the problem is again, they've had the trend of being able to start strong and then kind of just falling off after a certain point right here. And to be fair, that happens with a fair amount of teams. It's not exactly an uncommon thing here, but it's really about trying to, finish things in a situation like this. Now, luckily, I'll be honest, I kind of missed the map we're going to. However, I believe no matter what, it's a push map, which honestly, I think should play in the Dreamland's favor, because we've seen teams that get that early start and get that checkpoint super early on, and 9 times out of 10, the enemy team doesn't end up getting a real pushback until the very end. I'll let you talk about these bans, because I understand one, but I don't know about the other.
So we're heading to Runasapi here, and this is kind of the map I expected we would be going to when you said push. Runasapi seems to be everyone's kind of go-to map when push does come up, especially if it is in the hero pool. Ana being banned out here, I imagine that is InControl's ban. Dreamland, though, potentially banning out the Malga here. So they must know something here for InControl, that they like to play Malga on this map or just push in general. And they want to try to go away from that here a little bit. They don't want to be dealing with a lot of constant damage pressure being thrown at them. But what are we going to see? Is it going to be back to that Orisa mirror? Because I kind of expect it to be that. Junk Queen does find some value here. Same thing with Wrecking Ball. Same thing with Hazard, which is back in the hero pool now. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they come out with here, because I mean, Hunter, we came into the series talking about you really want to go into the back half of your Masters season here with only 2 losses. And at the moment, Dreamland is a lot closer to having 3 losses here. Looks like we're going to be seeing the Orisa mirror coming out here. Hanbei back over to the BAP, which, I mean, you go back to their map 1 performance and their defensive performance on Circuit Royale. The BAP looked incredible. It really did. But on the other side, I mean, there's no like shocking pick here. This is kind of what I expected from both sides. Zero on the Juno. It seems like InControl really wants to prefer to play this Juno over what we're seeing from Dreamland with Hanbei on the Baptiste. It's a little bit of a give and take with that kind of composition. Hanbei on the Baptiste, you want them to find a little bit more damage early. Zero, you want to build up for that orbital ray and hope that everyone finds a lot more damage when that orbital ray does come out.
Yeah, that's what you're hoping for right here. And now I'm curious to see how we're going to see the Tracer battle this time around, because Mickman, unfortunately, is going to have to deal with manually being over back on the Cassidy, which, unfortunately, Tracer going to a Cassidy, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do as a Tracer right here, but you see the pressure already being given. I mean, one of the Clover is literally in there, like, even more than the tank, as Mickman just gets burnt away right here. And unfortunately, that early aggression doesn't seem to be paying out. The fight's not tackling over yet right now, but you're going to see a quick little reset here from InControl, as Key would be lucky to get out of here alive.
They're not going to be able to here, and this is exactly the start that Dreamland really needed. I think manually going back over to the cast is huge for them, considering how well they played it on that first map. Just being able to shut down really anything. One Leaf Clover already deciding like, hey, let's just swap off here, going over to the Lucio instead. So they're trying to play a very mobile comp, especially with the Orisa. Not necessarily the worst thing to do here. And Benevolence getting off the Freya, going over to the Soj. I like Soj a little bit better on this map compared to the Freya, just because I feel like throwing yourself up in the air does kind of leave you vulnerable to both Manually and Hanbei on the other side.
Yeah, you see the fight's kind of split right now. You know, One Leaf Clover and Mickman are kind of just playing in the background. Meanwhile, everything else going on the front line, as Pella's simply trying to hold it down with the rest of the squad, hope to find an opening somewhere right here, as now Key is within a rock and a hard place. Might be burnt down, eventually will. And now things are getting dangerous very quickly out the get-go, because now that flank is the only thing left standing in VControl, and not even that will stand anymore. So that's going to be 2 minutes in, already going to be a checkpoint cap here for Dreamland.
Yeah, and if you're in control at this point, you might be considering making some more swaps up here. You just haven't been able to really find anything out just yet. You do have ultimates coming up here, but same thing could be said for Dreamland, who's going to have all 5 of their ultimates ready to go at some point in this engagement. This is certainly one of those situations where if you're Dreamland, be smart with them. The last time you had all 5 ultimates ready to go, you invested 4 and ended up losing the fight.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb comes out, not going to get a whole lot here, just going to hit the recall and fortunately hit the reset button here. It's 85 meters in counting on the board right now. Coming to a stop momentarily right now, but there's still a lot of ults on their side here right now, but who knows if you have to use any. Zero is going to be the one to advance right here. It's a 44 situation, manually going to be able to find one, and you're going to see a big investment to try to keep this one going. But to be honest, you have the opportunity to build your lead further and further, I don't hate the investment at all.
No, I don't hate the investment, but you also saw investment out from the other side, so it made it kind of worth it for them too. Yeah, they used 3 ultimates, and you only saw 2 come out there from InControl, but you'll take it. You'll take that every day of the week. I mean, Mickman now going over to the Genji, Zero going over to match Hanbei on the BAP here. You're really looking at InControl here, maybe grasping at straws, just trying to figure something out at this point.
Yeah, 118 meters as finally Noxious being taken out means the door is going to open up once again. You see the pressure right now being given from Pella right now, who's eventually going to be burnt down. So that fight essentially going to be forfeited away right now. So everybody else is going to simply take the opportunity to run away. And while there are some later deaths coming through here, right here, especially manually who's going to dilate. I mean, Pella and Hanbei are going to get that close spawn, but manually is a bit of a toss-up.
They should get it. They should get it. It's going to be close, but they should get it here. However, I mean, this is a map that we've seen that is very comebackable. I mean, hell, almost every push map is really comebackable here. And InControl's in a good spot here. They have ultimates to start out here, but they need to play fast with them. They cannot wait to respond. But Benevolence, hey, they took my words to heart. They're playing fast, starting off with that overclock.
Yeah, and everyone has to hide away. We're going to see M-Matrix be used directly back, and a rally beacon to be used in response. It was a 2-2 ult already, and Key might be willing to go make it a 3 here momentarily if the opportunity presents itself right here, but Mickman has gotten rid of manually his Pulse Bomb, only going to manage to help get rid of an Immortality field right now. As Pella's going to invest. I don't know if I liked it from the outset, but it seems to work momentarily as Key more than happy to throw back pretty much instantly. It's not going to get any connection of the sword here as Key will be burnt away, and inevitably, somehow, some way, Dreamland gonna take another fight win, and unfortunately, it felt like that was, for a while, InControl's to lose.
It really was, especially when how Dreamland essentially used both their support ultimates at the same exact time in the same exact place, not necessarily finding really any value other than just sustainability and being able to keep themselves alive. But, I mean, Pella coming in there with that late terror surge apparently made a huge difference and gives them back these forward spawns here. But you still have to go through a couple ults on the other side. Zero will have this damage ready to go here. And, I mean, this map is known for its long sight lines. I would not be surprised if you see that popped out here early.
Yeah, Repo gonna get forced because of that boop right there. It means it's a rough scenario to live through. Gonna be simply get forced out as they're gonna get pushed further and further. One Late Clover might be over-investing just slightly. Here is literally fighting for their lives on the outskirts right now as the rest of InControl simply trying to get their stuff back together. But One Late Clover is eventually gonna fall here. So this 23 meters might end up staying in place for now.
Amp coming out here just to try to build up some space right now if you're InControl. It's not necessarily going to work because where Pella is, they're going to be able to stall out this cart.
Yeah, and Pella's literally just staying in the background. He's going to try to, it's basically fighting to get their ult online here to try to help clear things around right here. Deadeye going to be used right now, mainly going to find one right now as the trade-outs. Going to come through, Pella hoping to find something. We'll find one, we'll find two at the end of the day. Going to pull that fight back, and Pella, once again, coming up big in a fight. Gonna help bring the bot back the other way, and right now, if you're Dreamland, you are 100% fine with just doing 50-50 fights.
Yeah, you'll take that here at this point. You have a huge lead, almost 100 meters, but I mean, Pella struggled last map. Let's be honest with ourselves here.
Oh, yeah.
This has been a great turnaround for them, and one they desperately needed. Same thing with the rest of the team. Hanbei and Manly, they just kind of struggled last map a lot, and I highlighted Manly, had the most deaths with 10 last map. They are playing excellently so far, and Key over to their third tank already this map.
Yeah, it's becoming a struggle to figure out what to really do here, but the Ramatra has been a relatively good pick thus far. Just gonna see if it's gonna have any effectiveness at this point, because already has lost 2 members in Key. Might just be taking a really long death here, which is not really something you want. You kind of want to die quickly if this fight's over with. Luckily, they will eventually be cleared away. But once again, they're going to move forward and probably going to be able to extend this lead just a little bit further. And if things go the wrong way, potentially try to finish the map.
I mean, they have the ultimates to do it. However, there's going to be ultimates on the other side to respond and try to slow them down here. You're going to have Beat, you're going to have Overclock, and probably a Blade at some point for InControl. Manly, though, the Deadeye has been constantly finding one, which is something you don't necessarily see that often, but Narwhal's starting it off early.
Yeah, Bahami being cleared out is going to make it really difficult for them to push any further than they already have right here. Pella is just going to back out, probably getting burnt out eventually, as the rest of the squad is going to simply go and die on the point right here. And that's going to be beautiful. Everyone dies on the point. Plenty of time for everybody to get the good respawn and come in with 2 more ultimates.
And again, like you said, Dreamland is perfectly fine taking these 50-50 fights here. I mean, if you're InControl, you need to win 2-3 fights in a row, even just to maybe get close to that 124 meters that Dreamland has here at the moment. But you have the ultimates to really do it, and you're only walking into a Deadeye. Check that. You're only walking into an Ant Matrix, but losing Manly early, that might force Dreamland to fall back.
And they're going to have to right here, because now you have to go and play for the checkpoint. You play with that Deadeye, but the problem is, you have 4 ultimates right now if you're InControl. Now, we saw problems earlier with them wasting away ultimates when we look back at that Oasis right here. This is going to be a curious thing right here, see if they have learned from that lesson or not. It's going to rush. Going to come out aggressively right here. Simply just going to try to get to the point here is, again, Dreamland just has to wait.
And I mean, I like the consumers coming out there. It does force Dreamland back, and you find Narwhal out. I mean, Dreamland, you don't want to talk about fumbling the bag here, but they're slowly starting to lose it here.
Yeah, being invested, and Pella's likely to invest his ult momentarily. 3 heal pulled in right now. 1 gets burnt away. Going to be able to spin out of it momentarily. And it looks like Pella and squad might be eventually able to push through with Key being down. That'll 100% be the case. Manually has made it back in. Clears house right here. And now, with that being the case, it looks like everybody will get the good respawn on the side of InControl.
Yeah, but right now you just want to be able to reset the spawn and start kind of pushing this bot back towards your side of the map here. You know there's ultimates ready for the other side. It's going to be an even 2-on-2, but the biggest difference is going to be the Blade and the Annihilation coming out here if Key does decide to use it.
Yeah, we're going to see it's beautiful at the end of the day. Vikman is able to help get rid of them, force out a bunch of the cooldowns, made it really easy for Key and the squad to kind of go in and help clear things away. So, going to be able to work back, get that checkpoint back pretty much immediately.
Checkpoint back here, but 37 seconds left to go, and considering how long this fight goes, you might be looking at final fight. So these ultimates for InControl, that Overclock about to come online, might all come out here just to try to keep this cart moving. But if you are Dreamland, don't necessarily invest ultimates here early on. Respond with your ultimates.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's going to be tough right now as Nox just goes for that pulse bomb, doesn't find anything. It's on Benevolence once again to make something happen right here. Has to duck for a moment as manually just not get the hit right there. But now, you're going to be out of ultimates here pretty soon. You have a Kitsune Rush right here as Matrix going to be used pretty aggressively right here, trying to find something, but they're getting pushed back further and further. Hanbei barely getting kept up in that situation. Dex, it's becoming a bit of a struggle right now. It's going to be simply a beat versus, you know, the Terror Surge right now. And Pella is pushing really hard to get it online, but Narwhal has gone down. Beat used right here. Pella, I mean, might be able to simply die right here, but instead going to invest the ultimate. I mean, they want to end this right here and now. Like, manually is just manually trying to hang, trying to make it happen. It's a 3v3 scenario right here, but eventually they're going to be burnt down, and now Final Fight territory here is, it might happen.
Pella needs to swap here, something that can get back to the cart fast, because Noxious can only do so much. The Wrecking Ball can come out here. They need to get something here, because right now, still, InControl does not have all their members back here. It should be Dreamland's fight here, but they need to find Key out here early on.
And this is literally on the back of manually to get this ult on time, but McMahon has gone down. If this all comes up online, this is essentially over with, and yeah, I mean, we're one full Deadeye away from this ending right here. Key is just hiding for their life right here, but eventually, at the end of the day, it's going to get burnt away, and I'd be sweating right now if I'm a Dreamland fan, but you've taken it to a map 5 right here, that big lead, doing it for you at the end of the day, but it's still echoing the same tone that we've seen right here. InControl having a bad start, but being able to fight back really well in the second half.
Yeah, and Dreamland, I mean, they almost fumbled in there. You started to see InControl build up that confidence, build up that momentum. They started looking like a different team. They were finding picks, which was the biggest thing they really struggled in those first 5 minutes of this map, the first half. They were really struggling to find those early picks in a lot of those engagements. Dreamland did a good job. I mean, like you said, that early lead they got, basically, they got that lead in the first, like, 2 pushes that they had in the first 3 minutes, 4 minutes of this map. And Dreamland, I mean, like you said, they could take 50-50 fights here and there, and InControl, they needed to start to piece together fights. And when they did, you start to see Dreamland maybe start playing a little bit desperate. I felt like the rally that came out there late was a little bit of a bad usage of it there. That second last Deadeye wasn't necessarily the best one as well, because you were going into an overclock on the other side. You didn't find anyone with it either. It just seemed like the ultimates there late for Dreamland almost ended up costing them. But they were able to come back out, especially with Pella coming out on the Wrecking Ball, just being able to cause a little bit of disruption there on the point was such a big part of Dreamland, forcing a map 5. And Hunter, InControl, they want to bring us to King's Row.
Yeah, and I don't hate it whatsoever. I think the way things are gone, this is a relatively good map to go to. But now it's really what, you know, it's going to be for these bands right here. But to be honest, this might be the time where, you know, you might just send the bat bye-bye. This is probably the thing I would do right now, because if there's somebody that I am scared of staying consistent as they have throughout the first 4 maps, it's 100% that Baptiste right there. But otherwise, I'm not sure what you would want to get rid of here. I mean, if Pella stays in, you know, maybe you focus in over on the Orisa. But I think it has to be the Baptiste if you're talking about the thing that has given you the most trouble consistently.
Yeah, it could be the BAP. It could be the Cassidy out here as well. I mean, if you want to make a smart ban out the Cass, you still have to probably deal with Freya or Soj, which has been something we have seen. We haven't seen necessarily the Soj that much out for manually. They really tend to prefer to play the Cassidy, but their Freya is still very good. I would also lean towards the Orisa here. Maybe if you want to try to make it a little bit spicy, banning out the Tracer. We have seen InControl wants to, or has shown us that they could play the Genji here at points throughout. We haven't necessarily seen that from Dreamland, but no, Hunter, I mean, you were right all along. We all knew what it was going to be. They're banning out the BAP here and going to force Hanbei to play something else.
Yeah, I like the choice a lot at the end of the day. I think it is 100% the correct choice, but now it's a lot tougher to decide what the pick is for Dreamland here. Because you could decide to go a couple of routes. I don't think you get rid of the Risa, because I think Pella did a really good job on that last map, and I think you'd be fine taking the Mirror. Maybe you get rid of the Ermatra to simply take that away as an option for Key, who is performing on it pretty well. I mean, things started turning around in that sense when we kind of saw the Ermatra start to come out a little bit on that previous map. DPS-wise, nothing very specific comes to mind here, because there hasn't really been a relative gap in the DPS other than the Cassidy before, but again, you know, it's not something you can really do a whole lot about. But we'll find out here in a minute, as we're going to see if there's going to be any swaps right here, but things haven't really changed since map 2, and honestly, there's a really good chance it's not going to change here either.
Yeah, I mean, I think both these teams have their best lineups out there. If you're making a swap here in this final map, it means that you have someone that's going to make a huge difference. But they're going to probably end up coming in cold, which is something you really have to be worrying about here if you're either side. Don't know who the second ban is. We do know it is in. So once the lineups get finalized here, we will know what it is. But, I mean, Dreamland, they cannot start off fast here and then fall apart again. You go back to Circuit Royale, which, yeah, granted, it's escort, not hybrid, but it kind of does play the same kind of style, especially once you get after that first point here on Kings Row, where it's basically just a push. You do not want to kind of get stopped early or really get stopped late either, because it kind of puts you in a bad spot no matter what.
Yeah, it really does in a situation like that, so I'm hoping that that adjustment is honestly just made properly here, and I honestly think it will. But Kings Row it's not the most forgiving map in the world, I'll say, Dex. Especially, I think, for defenders, it's not really forgiving. There are a lot of important places you have to try to fight at that are kind of hard to fight at here. Like, one thing that comes to mind immediately is the archways, because it's really hard to kind of, man, I've just got those two right. But it's a scenario where it's so important to hold on to specific areas, but if you lose out on certain fights too late, you kind of lose out on any opportunity to hold on some of the best spots the map has to offer.
Yeah, and like you said, Ramattra being the second ban out here, not necessarily a big surprise. I thought it would have been really interesting to see maybe Dreamland ban out the Orisa, considering back on Circuit Royale when we did see the Ramattra duel kind of come into play, when it was a Ramattra duel from the start, Dreamland was in control of it, or Dreamland was really winning all those engagements with it. When there was a late swap from Dreamland, it was in control, finding a lot of value with it here. But banning out the Ramattra, not the worst ban here. I think it's really smart, like you kind of said. It makes a lot of sense. It's going to be interesting, though, to see what the DPS kind of play here. Will it kind of still be one hit scan and the Tracer, or could we potentially see a Mei come out here? Kings Row, first point, chokes. I mean, Mei finds a lot of value here, and we have seen that InControl in the past has been willing to play the Mei at times. Same thing for Dreamland a little bit, but it was a late swap.
It was a late swap, but we'll see what the case is going to be at map 5, and barring a statistical anomaly, our last map of the series here, as by the looks of things, lineups have not changed at all. Both teams confident that this is the 5 that is going to get it done right here, but specifically, it's going to be InControl going on to the attack to get things started right here. But, I mean, Dex, it's interesting to talk about the defensive side of things, because this is pretty much what you expect, except for Hanbei being over on the Juno, which is not something we've seen a ton of them throughout the series so far.
No, not at all. I honestly expect to see them on the Ana. I thought that would have been the way to go here for them. And, man, I really wanted to talk about InControl's composition before they made some swaps here. But you still have some funny stuff going on. Zero on the Lifeweaver, nope, going over to the Juno.
Thanks.
I mean, this is what we kind of expected. Mickman on the Genji, I thought we would see them on the Tracer, but they've been playing a really good Genji when we have seen it from them, so not necessarily the biggest surprise. And Genji and Tracer at this point, very, very interchangeable in these kind of compositions right now. But it looks like Dreamland's gonna let them get through the choke.
Yeah, I don't blame it. You're kind of playing a poke battle here, honestly. Both sides are kind of going that way, too. Mickman's kind of the one character who really doesn't want to have to just keep playing poke with both. You eventually want to be able to go in right here as Pella goes in from the top rope, trying to find the assassination. Doesn't quite work out, and now Pella's going to be in a bit of a rough scenario, but should be able to live for the time being. As Dex, it's kind of a Mexican standoff in a fight like this. Someone eventually has to take the aggression and move forward, and Pella is trying to do it, trying to push, get rid of one leaf clover, but unfortunately, it's not working out, and Pella's kind of in no man's land.
And they're gonna give up a tick because of it. They're really looking to at least find at least one pick there. There's the pick, and they're gonna make sure they do not allow another tick to come out here.
Yeah, you see right there, Key is going to go in super aggressive to try to find something. It's the risk you got to take there because the other side of things is just simply letting the fight be lost at the end of the day. But, I mean, you get it to 55%. You get a tick on the board. Not really bad, all things considered right here. Eventually, last death for One Leaf Clover as Manually already has a bowl shot. And at that point, Noxious, a pulse bomb as well.
Yeah, I mean, defensive side here is very, very strong. Not surprised that they built up those ultimates. Hanbei not that far away from an orbital as well. I mean, Narwhal's really the one kind of lagging behind here, but I don't really blame them. They have to kind of play back here to make sure Hanbei and Pella both stay safe on these high grounds here. If you're in control, you just need to find a pick. That's really it, especially on this first point. Giving yourself any advantage you can helps you out immensely.
Yeah, it really does in a situation like this. I'm curious to see how it's going to end up going down right here. Benevolence does manage to get rid of one, going to pull some bodies in, and is going to find a little bit more success here. Unfortunately, oh boy, does not do much in the grand scheme of things here as One Leaf Clover is just trying to live right now.
But you'll take those picks. You will gladly take those picks if you're in control because you have the spawn advantage. You will go fast now on to the point, and honestly, if you're at Dreamland, you might be giving up a second tick here.
Yeah, and they are essentially going to, I mean, in a way going to have to because recall is going to have to be used here. You're eventually going to have to send your reset towards the point right now, who somehow got to the back line, by the way. Never saw that happen right there as Bowl Shot going to come out online. Pella going to get rid of One Leaf Clover as Bigman is trying to find a Blade right now. Not finding a ton of success and unfortunately walks right into the Pulse Bomb. That's not a very great situation right there as they're going to be cleared away. 1:20 left on the clock here. 2 ticks on the board. And things becoming a little bit desperate right now, but at the very least, ult advantage online for InControl in this next fight.
Yeah, the Rally and Terror Surge give you a very deadly combo if they decide to combo it up here, because Terror Surge pull him in, Rally to stun to make sure the Terror Surge finds a lot of value. That could be something that really wins you this first point here right now, since you only need a tick. I mean, you're very happy with that last fight. If you are in control, you got the second tick. Now you force out every ultimate. You know you're in a good spot. Manly will have their bolo ready to go. But if you're Dreamland, you're hoping that this bolo finds more than one.
Yeah, and oh, that is a way to get a fight started right there. You lose out on people immediately. Benevolence, again, is managing to get at least one every single fight, but it's not meaning a whole lot right here as Manually, yes, we'll have to take the reset here, but with Key down, he got plenty of time to reset.
Yeah, I mean, Key needed to get out. They needed to stay alive there desperately because now it really evens up everything here. And Noxious is going to have their Pulse Bomb. So, yeah, you'll still have 2 ultimates to the 3 that InControl has. But the Bull and the Pulse Bomb, they will do a decent amount of damage here, allowing it to be a little bit of a cleanup for Dreamland here. If you're in control, you need to go fast, and you need to go now.
Yeah, you cannot afford to wait. Pulse Bomb going to come out. It's going to miss right here as Benevolence is literally just going to go down without using the bolo at the end of the day. Now Manually has a free bolo ready to use. He's going to throw it right into the face here of One Leaf Clover, who's literally against the wall, but they're going to be pushed back further and further as now Recall has to be extended by Noxious, and Bigman is just trying to survive, sees that, and tries to go that pressure on the Hami right now. It's going to be forced out right here. 99%, make it 100 as eventually they barely will win out that fight there, but my goodness, was it close to going the other way.
Yeah, it was very, very close. Each team kind of made mistakes right there, but in control, they do it enough there, really, to get them that first point. However, not being able to clean up a couple picks right there does allow Dreamland to hold at Archers, especially with a Terror Surge and an Orbital Ray. Puts them in a very, very good spot, but looks like they're going to back up here a little bit. Kind of surprising, but hey, you lose Pella, you might be backing up into the Foundry.
Yeah, you're bouncing way further than that right there. In fact, and Noxious literally taking the scenic route going under just to try to get away from this fight. Oh.
And I mean, this could not have been a better start to this push here for InControl. You needed something after a really a big struggle there on that first point, and now you won a team fight very early on. You built up to 2 ultimates, about to have a third one here, but same thing could be said for InControl, who's gonna have 4 ultimates ready to go at some point in this fight. So Hunter, I'd be expecting a pretty heavy ult fight coming out here, especially Pella looking like they're trying to get in position for that Terror Surge.
Yeah, double orbital raid. That is a lot of bodies, and Pulse Bomb gets 2, Pella gets 1. The fight's not technically over yet, though. Key is still alive with Benevolence hanging around, but I think the HP game is eventually going to fall its way right here. Key is not going to be able to get anybody else, but we'll be able to build up towards that Terror Surge. But yeah, I mean, Orbital Ray plus Terror Surge equals no way to live through it, honestly.
Yeah, no way to live through a 3-for-2 trade, though. I mean, you did get the Orbital Ray out from the other side. Benevolence did find 1 with their bolo. Narwhal, though, having this rally is going to be very, very key here, but you're still going to have to go into a 2 strong ultimates on the other side with that Terra Surge and Blade. Could see it as a combo coming out here, but you have to be ready for Narwhal's rally here if you are Mickman.
Yeah, and Key, I think, pulls the trigger just a little too early on that. Could have potentially gotten one, but Mickman does manage to find one, manages to find a second, and now they're pushed back further. Stole momentarily from Noxious, but unfortunately it's not going to do anything. And I think realistically, if they keep 3 on the cart, our recontestation just isn't happening.
And you thought that he used that a little bit early? No, I think they used it at the perfect time. They recognized that Pella was way far in that backline, so they could play up, get that Terra Surge and that combo there with Mickman, and just basically win the fight there. Pella was being bullied out by 3 members of InControl there. So now again, InControl extending their life here on this map and on this round, where at points I really thought that Dreamland had done enough to stop them.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, my only complaint was them pulling the trigger on setting up the damage too quickly. I think they potentially could have gotten someone, but hey, it works out. I'm not going to complain. Clearly, they're not going to complain either, but a minute is on the clock right now. Key is just getting hit with shot after shot right here. It's really hard to do anything here, as Noxious is going to have a Pulse Bomb ready to go here. I imagine probably isn't going to wait too long on it, especially with one Leaf Clover just kind of sitting there, rally in hand. Noxious going to get pushed back right there, as eventually Narwhal burnt away. Bubble Shot comes up online, manually going to get taken out. As a result, Pulse Bomb goes in and sticks. It's not going to get anything, though, as they're simply going to have to take the death on the point here, stall for as long as they can. And now, this next fight, I mean, holds so much importance, because it is the difference between not only them completing the map, but potentially with time on the clock.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, you want to complete the map here, so in case Dreamland completes the map, you at least have an overtime. Noxious making swap over here to Genji late, but you do have 2 ultimates ready to go here if you are Dreamland. And those 2 ultimates did a lot last time, but hey, someone needs to touch the cart.
And manually, more than happy to try to stop them from doing so right there. Everyone moving in is a 4v4 scenario right now. Key needs to focus on staying alive, but has no cooldowns left. Is simply getting burnt further and further away. Eventually be burnt down, as Pella going to be hanging over on the cart right now. You can see the attack just trying to push forward. Everyone is so low, though. Zero ended up being knocked away. And that might be that trigger you're looking for. Mickman has managed to get one right here, though, so keeping hopes alive momentarily. But you need to get Key back into this fight if you want to have a real opportunity to take this one back right here. Bubble Shot hits. Manually gets taken down, and with Key back, it's starting to become a struggle right here. Pella burnt away, and that should do it right there. They'll be able to finish in that overtime at a point where Dex, they were a fight away from not even getting past first point. And here they are, finishing the map.
Yeah, and what is one thing you said about this InControl team? They start off slow, but they get better as it goes on. And Hunter, they put together a 0.3 push right there. That was really, really good. Yeah, you would have loved to complete the map with time, but you completed the map. You didn't lose a fight in that 3rd point phase either. I mean, they really turned it around after that struggle they had on the 1st point and the little struggle they had on 2nd point. They got better as that round went on, while Dreamland, on the other hand, it just seemed like they couldn't figure it out. They were still kind of playing their game, trying to win fights smartly. And there's a lot of times where you could say, like, hey, they were winning fights, but we started to see some of the same mistakes that has been haunting Dreamland throughout this entire series. I mean, Pella may be playing a little bit too aggressively on the Orisa. And I mean, to say it, not even a problem with Dreamland, but Benevolence coming back alive on the Freya, the Bolos. We're finding manually out the last 3 times, I believe. So getting rid of the Freya on the other side is always a good move if you're the Freya on your side.
Yeah, I 100% think it is in a scenario like that. And Freya's, once again, can be online for both sides. Benevolence and manually have been doing fantastic throughout the series. I mean, I don't think there's been a time where I could say one genuinely had the hand up on the other when it comes to being on the Freya. They both have had amazing moments, but now it's more important than ever right now if you're a Benevolence to help your team out, keep things going, and try to survive right here. Because if you could stop them from finishing the map, you'll take away the series 5-2. Put yourself in a really good situation right here in a game where neither of these teams wants to lose.
Yeah, and right now, if you're just Dreamland, you need to get something here fast. You've been doing pretty good throughout the night, just finding early picks, but you need to do that here now. You need to cap this point very, very quickly if you are them, or you're going to kind of be putting yourself in the same position that InControl put themselves in last round.
Yeah, you're going to see right now, Rope Scenario is Noxious going to get pressured right there, direct onto one Leaf Clover, who's sitting dangerously low right now. as Stick once again, I mean, annually is getting closer and closer to that bowl. Benevolence sitting super low, and eventually all the damage is going to come through. Manually connecting, 1, 2. Pill eventually going to help get rid of the other, but that's going to be a really quick take right there. And remember, Dex, if they finish this map somehow with more than a minute on that clock, the worst case scenario for them is a draw.
Yeah, which, hey, let's talk about map 6 here right now. But 5 minutes on the clock to push through Streets Phase. However, Streets Phase, I will always say, it is sneakily one of the toughest kind of pushes to get through because you have so many chokes and so many just such a tight area for you to kind of push through that the defense team has so much value in just positioning here. And I mean, the cart not moving necessarily fast allows InControl here, even with it being a team kill in that last engagement on the first point, to get back and hold at arches, which is something that we did not see Dreamland do. They were set up for it, but they just backed out of it.
Yeah, and you don't really see teams do that a whole lot often unless they really think they can hold differently, which, to be fair, again, isn't often at all. So they're going to move in really aggressively, Hambi. Give me more than having to move in right now. Pella going to be pushing through and getting rid of Benevolence. And you see this immediately. They recognize, hey, we're just done here. But at that point, I'd be trying to die on that card there. Try to stall out as much as possible right here. Because no matter what, this is realistically already one fight territory. Because second point can go so fast if you're a defender.
Yeah, but this is one of those situations where I would have a second person on the cart right now if you're Dreamland. Yeah, you would eventually have to fall back, but hey, you would only fall back a little bit less than what you're already going to have to here, especially knowing that the other side does have 3, 4, 5 ultimates coming up here, and you just use your Orbital Ray, meaning that they know that Zero has theirs ready to go here, and we've seen some combos come out here, but Benevolence, at a point where you need something for if you're in control, Benevolence has been a player all night long.
Ooh, but yeah, Pella, let's come back online here as well. Benevolence trying to find something with a bullet shot, doesn't get a whole lot, as not just getting a ton of by either. This is a whole lot of ultimates used right now, and now what's really interesting is that Bigman has a blade online ready to go, but they still have to make all the way back from that spawn. Bullet shot using the back line, gonna catch onto a couple of bodies, but again, nobody has gone down yet, despite all the ultimates here. Eventually, Whalers Bigman gonna go for the blade. It's gonna be on to them to try to pull this one back right here. Needs to try to get it for at least one more right now as Hanbei running away, as Bigman fighting for their lives will eventually be burnt away right here as that might be the death toll for the second point.
It's not necessarily going to be the death toll for the second point here if Key stays alive, though. That's going to be the thing here. Key though dying, yeah, that might be it here for the second point right now. If you're in control, meaning you're going to have to put up a hell of a hold here on the final point push here, as you're basically going to be giving them almost 4.5 minutes to push here. You want to get that down under a minute. You really do it. So you need to figure something out here if you're in control. But one thing here, Dreamland's done a really good job of making sure that thing that we've been talking about in control, getting better as this map has gone on or as the round has gone on. They're just trying to play this round incredibly fast so in control can not get to that point where they are playing at their best.
Yeah, and he's down already. There's literally nothing you can do here now. You can't build up to anything else. Mickman's dead. You have to just pull back, and now we're entering super dangerous territory here. Because you imagine trying to hold onto that first point for 3 minutes, how difficult that's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly difficult, but Pella and Hanbei have that combo ultimates they've had in the past. There's the orbital. Is the Terror Surge going to come out? It doesn't look like it because, Pella's kind of just blocked them at the door.
Yeah, let me push through. Benevolence is going to go out, have to use the bolo shot. Oh. It's going to catch on directly, and I mean, what do you got to say? That is worst case scenario right here for InControl, a team that has fought back really hard and now has to hold on for a miracle 3 minutes and 23 seconds. If they let go of a single tick, they'll lose the series, and Dreamland will be the one to move up to 5-2.
And one thing with that entire round, Dreamland just did a good job always being the team to initiate the fights. Yeah, a lot of times you're gonna say, well, they're the attacking team, they should be initiating the fights, but you do see defensive teams, go on and try to play aggressively there, and it does work for them sometimes. But Dreamland did not let InControl even catch a breath there. I mean, the orbital ray to get through the Arch's choke basically found 2. That ended a fight right there and forced back InControl. And they were never really able to get anything back from that. The ultimates coming out for them didn't find value. The orbital ray, Dreamland did a great job kiting it out and just backing up away from it, not losing anyone. That was a really good round there for Dreamland. And like I said, I think a big part of it was the fact that they played so fast that it really gave InControl no time to necessarily win a team fight or get anything set up. But Hunter, let's get to it. I don't know how I feel about the Diva.
It is the best way to call it. It is a risk, but at this point, I think you have to do it. You look at how that last point went. You've got to try something because if you don't, I mean, you're kind of just setting yourself up for some level of failure. Now, D.Va, I don't know if it's necessarily the best pick, but Dex, it feels like you have to try anything to try to make this happen.
Yeah, and this definitely seems like a situation where maybe they would play the Ram if it was there, but it was banned out. So you need to find some value here early on with your DPS, finding picks. So I'm looking at Benevolence here. They've been the person consistently throughout the series here for InControl to find early picks. They really need to do a lot here this round.
Yeah, you're going to see it's slowly taken away further and further, and Mickman is down already. Key is going to be separated from the heals right here. And eventually, they're going to be pushed away further and further. Key knocked away, and Dex, unfortunately, I think as soon as they're down, that is going to pull it away. Dreamland had a rough go of it at some points, had some dips, but at the end of the day, it's going to go into their favor as they're going to move up to 5-2. Unfortunately for InControl, going to go to 4-3, still in the upper echelons right here, but, I mean, with the schedule that's ahead, this feels like a win that they really needed.
Yeah, it really does, especially since their next game is against Midori, another good team. Then they have Iliad Helios, who I believe is one of the only teams that has yet to win a game in the Masters tier. But then they go into that gauntlet that we were talking about. Uni Academy, Emote down mid, Dill Dragons, and Tanuki and Regen are their final games of the season here. So they have a very, very difficult back half of the season when you look at just standings. But they really did show us a lot here tonight, and it gives me a lot more confidence against some of those teams that I just mentioned, that they're going to be able to put up a good fight and probably take a couple victories here. So this InControl team, watch out. They're going to be a sneaky good team here later on this season. But Dreamland, this is a win they desperately needed. But they really did have to learn some stuff through it. And this is going to be a series that they go back and probably VOD review, because there are times this series where we talked about Dreamland looking lost. You can go back to Circuit Royale. Their attack just did not look good. Suravasa, the Wrecking Ball didn't necessarily work out for them as they were really hoping for. And when they made that swap just a little bit too late, Runa Sapi almost fell apart for them as well. That big lead they got was just enough to get them over the edge in that map. And then Kings Row was probably the best map they put together this entire series. Yeah, Oasis was really good as well, but Kings Row, I mean, completing the map with 3.5 minutes on the time bank is really, really good. Yeah, you can maybe make an argument like they still let InControl complete the map, but they let them complete it in overtime. So there's a big, big difference there. Dreamland, like I said, stuff you can learn from this series, but InControl, same thing. Stuff you can learn from Dreamland, that they come out on top, like you said, 5-2, puts them in a really, really comfortable spot in the standings.
Yeah, it really does in a situation like this, and this is why I was pressing on it so hard that when we got to that second to last fight, how important that fight was. Because we got to that scenario where, hey, maybe if that was the case, maybe, if they would have gotten the opportunity to, have another fight or two if you're InControl, maybe you could have gotten past that point. Maybe you could have made it more than just a one-and-done situation. That's why it's so significant to be able to finish a map with time, especially a hybrid map where it's so important to do so. But at the end of the day, I mean, still have to give credit to InControl. They fought back hard in a scenario where we thought earlier in the series that they were just done, but they fought back. They made this series their own for a while, and hopefully they can still take away that experience with it, because you pushed a team that is also so dang good within Dreamland, who is just kind of pushing themselves further and further into that top 8 territory. So, I mean, only time's going to tell. At the end of the day, these teams still have a lot of matches to go right now, but with the way these teams are playing and how close they're doing, it still wouldn't surprise me if both these teams cracked into that top 8.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, InControl, even with this loss, only falls down to 8th in the standings, while Dreamland currently sitting 3rd, but they're in that 3rd through 7th area. So still a lot of hope for both these teams to be able to make it into that end of season playoffs here. But Dreamland, a win they desperately needed. Only 2 teams that have 1 loss left here at this point. That would be Alternate and Regen at the moment, who have played 7 games, should be playing their 8th at some point either today or tomorrow. So at the end of this week, Hunter, we're going to start to see a lot of different tier breaks here in this tier.
Yeah, because it's worth noting the fact that these teams are now playing those 3 games a week, so things are going to be ramping up. We're going to find things out a lot quicker, as I think all the Masters divisions are kind of, at least regular season-wise, are finishing before the month is going to be over. So we're going to have a really good idea as to where everyone's really going to stand, after the next couple of weeks here. And that includes with these matches tomorrow, because I kind of want to take a moment, because I know we kind of picked what we wanted to do already, since things kind of changed around. Extinction and Alternate decided they wanted to play Sunday, which, to be fair, I get it, understandable. But real quick, just before we go, we'll take a quick look at some of those matches, because I know it's been a day already. My Google Chrome just crashed on me. That is interesting. It's an interesting series of events. Luckily, it doesn't affect
Chrome.
It does. Thank you, Chrome. Really cool of you. Didn't affect the stream, thankfully. But Dex, I don't know if you have the games pulled up as well here, but I mean, we got games such as, I mean, there are a couple of games that are probably going to be wipes, but a couple of really good games like the one we'll be covering, Dill Dragon's Emote Down Mid, that has map 5 potential. Midori versus InControl. Midori, one of the strongest teams so far within the division, who actually just took a loss to Regen in 3-1 fashion. So both these teams kind of rallying for an opportunity to bounce back, and Dreamland and Tsunuki Tempere, who, again, 2 teams I'm excited to watch that have done really well right here, and I think teams that, again, should have a very good vote here to get into that top 8.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's still going to be a lot more action tomorrow. I imagine there's going to be a decent amount of people streaming it, us included, probably Bullskunk as well, and probably a couple others. So, hey, there's going to be a lot of FaceIt Masters action that you're not going to want to miss.
Yeah, 100% right here. But speaking of that, man, we'll go ahead and rate them in a minute. Obviously, I'm going to wait about, 2 minutes, because obviously I have a tendency to get ahead of myself when it comes to rating people. Hee hee ha ha. I'm not even looking at our cameras right now, but I imagine Dex was smiling just now. Be willing to take a good shot at
that. I am, but probably not for that reason. You know the reason.
Oh, I know the reason, because I'm drawing it out. But to be fair, this is more purposeful, because I don't want to. Come on, you can't do this. You can't. Come on. Is it a different reason, sir? Am I not correct?
No, you're still drawing it out.
I know, because we're gonna raid, but the stream's gotta catch up. It's gotta catch up. I'm gonna, I'll make you happy. I'll put in the request for it to send it out and get people in there. Are you happy now? Are you happy now, Dex?
I mean, sure.
I'll take it. Whatever.
But hey, still an incredible series here tonight. These 2 teams, I mean, Boston map 5 almost had map 6 written into the bank here, but Dreamland, they just made sure that was not going to be the case. Over 3.5 minutes on that time bank as they completed this map. It just, as they completed King's Row, really gave them all the advantage they needed. And like you kind of said, the Diva pick there was one of those things where if it works out great, and you're probably going to end up holding their force in that map 6. But I mean, you lost your Genji there early on, then you lost your mech, and that was basically the writing on the wall and one of the final nails in the coffin for the series for InControl.
Yeah, it really wasn't a situation like that, but it, is what it is at the end of the day. I'm happy to kind of see how these teams perform further down the line, but that's something we're going to have to see right then and there. But again, we're going to make this quick, I promise. Thank y'all very much for sticking around, for watching us. We're going to go watch somebody else, since Bullskunk apparently just got off at the same time we did. So everybody, have fun seeing that here in a moment that you're not going to be able to catch up with. Hee hee ha ha. But either way, gonna end this thing right here now. Again, thank you all very much for being here. We're gonna see you tomorrow for another amazing game of FaceIt League action. So have a good night. See y'all then.